If you think about you being Neo in the Matrix, everyone you interact with is part of this matrix illusion. I mean, that doesn't mean that they're not human or they're not a soul. It means that there is something divine powering this whole thing. If we are cognizant of that when we're interacting with somebody and we're not just thinking about that interaction, but we're thinking that God's acting through this person to deliver a message or an opportunity for me to deliver that person a message, or for an opportunity for us to collaborate to co-create something amazing, then every moment's a miracle, and we just wait to see it unfold. And sometimes we don't see it unfold until much later on, and even perhaps after we pass back on to non-physical, do we see the true ripple effect of our actions, our words, our deeds, our thoughts.
That's a really powerful point, because I think a lot of people want to see the return on their investment now and see why things happen the way they happen, or get to the promised land, if you will, to use an Old Testament reference. I remember having this conversation with my dad early in life where something tragic had happened, and it was before anything tragic had happened to me. And I had plenty of tragedy happen to me along the way afterwards. So it really helped me. And it was like, he said, "Oh, you've gotten to the point where you're struggling with why bad things happen to good people." And I was like, yeah. And my dad was a philosophy major. So like he likes to think about thinking and really have these kind of meta conversations, and the way it made sense to me at some point was that, like, I don't get to see the whole thing from where I am. And so I have to trust in the fact. I love the idea that people think about the universe, it's either benevolent or malevolent. Like, if you think it's malevolent, I could try to convince you it's not, but ultimately you're the one in your head who makes that decision, right? So for me, faith, which is like this belief in something with the absence of knowledge, it's a gift you give yourself. Because if I give myself the gift of the belief of a benevolent universe, inside of that framework, I see everything happening for me. If I think about the universe as malevolent, I see everything happening to me. Now, you can't convince me otherwise. I'm the one who makes that ultimate decision for myself. And so I think faith is a very powerful, game-changing gift you give yourself, because no one can actually make you believe something without your consent, and no one can take it away from you without your consent. One of the things that really inspires me is a belief in this divine universe where you and I are cells within a much larger body. And we're actually working together to co-create some sort of meta health, meta existence that's beyond what we can see in this little flesh rental suit that we're kind of occupying for a very, very temporary period of time and space, right? Like, this tiny thing does not stick around very long, doesn't go very far,
It's a blink of an eye.
It's a blink. It thinks it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but it is just a blink, right? And that actually comforts me. It helps put my own suffering and my own drama in perspective.
Wow, that's beautiful. It's funny you mentioned the concept of a benevolent universe versus a malevolent one, because that's the topic of the book I'm working on. It's called Living in a Friendly Universe, A Skeptic's Guide to the Unseen World.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. Game on. Things are happening. This is the thing about being a human. Things are happening. And then in our heads, we're trying to make sense out of what's happening. So the whole making sense thing is an inside job. What's happening out there, the meaning I give it is all in here. For those of you, listening to this, I'm pointing to my head when I say in here. This is happening between my ears, my sense of whether this is good for me or it's bad for me. This is good for the planet. It's bad for the planet. All of that meaning is being made up in my head. At least I believe it is. My experience of the out there, I grew up playing sports. I grew up watching sports. So I have this analogy, which is like when you watch the Super Bowl, the event, the game itself out there is being played. And you've got, like, depending on the score, when the time's up, you have like 3 different reactions going on out there or in people's heads. One is, it was great. And that's if you're a fan of the team that won. A second making sense of that event is, it was terrible, because you're a fan of the team that lost. And then there's a third person out there, the neutral, who really didn't care about the game. They just wanted to watch the commercials. But it's the same event. It's you know what I mean? It's a game being played, and yet we have all these different opinions about it. Though all those opinions are an inside job. I think if people can understand and own that we're making up all this meaning all the time, there's a lot of freedom suddenly to be like, oh, well, if I'm making it up anyway, why don't I make up something that's inspiring or empowering or comforting or curious or funny, right? Rather than depressing, disenfranchising, irritating, oppressing, right? There's just like so many ways we could go with it and kind of play around with it. I just think that that's a really great thing to figure out. If you can like chew on that, swallow that, and like suddenly realize I'm making it all up anyway in my head. Why don't I make up something that works for me and the world around me? Giddy up.